You know, where is your attention? What feels hot? What is interesting? And a couple of things came out of that conversation that we want to dig into in a little bit of depth here. But first, I think the idea of New York creativity in itself is so provocative. And as a starter, I want to throw out, I'd love to hear from each of you. How do you define New York creativity, especially at a time of globalization?
Thank you. Thanks so much, Rob and WPP, for hosting us and for having us here. As an English person, I always looked at New York as kind of this pinnacle of creativity and this melting pot of everybody really coming together, you know, great clients, great creative minds, and really, really great work, which maybe some people in England would disagree with, but it's always been a sort of the very top of the mountain. So for me, New York creativity is really what creativity is. At FCB, we talk about creativity as an economic multiplier. So using creativity is just bringing together two things to solve a problem. And when we do that in service of our clients' business problems, that's kind of, you know, the goal for creativity. I don't know if that's New York. That's creativity at its best.
Finance and creativity come together, and you maybe have that interplay. I don't know, for you, what do you see as the state of New York creativity at the moment?
Well, the state of creativity in New York, I was going to answer your first question.
Go for it.
Because that's all I thought of. I mean, the state of creativity in New York, it's interesting because during the pandemic, obviously, a lot of walls came down and, you know, you're working across agencies that are across the country, across the world. I've got many people on my teams who are from Chicago, Kansas City, Miami, you know, Seattle, and we're having creative reviews. And, you know, I might not even have a team in that meeting who is in New York. So in a way, I kind of feel a little bit of a different perspective this year when it comes to kind of what is New York creativity to me. I mean, one of the questions that you asked last week and what you asked here is, you know, how would you define it, or what might make it stand apart? And the first word that I thought of was really like more of an attitude. It's the intensity. I think it's really the intensity and the intention to which I think New Yorkers come to work every day, approach a brief. There's very much a sense of like, I'm going to push this. I want to push to the future. We're going to find it. We're going to grind it out to get there. And I think having worked across, you know, all sorts of offices now in terms of the VML network, I could feel that even more. And, you know, one thing I really appreciate from the VML network is Kansas City's the hub, and there's really a great heart that comes from that hub. But there's the intensity and the intention and that grind that really is special to New York.
What comes to mind for you as someone who has done a global tour of duty and has landed in New York? How do you see New York creativity? Look, got it.
All right. Thanks. I was told to be soft, but not that soft. Just having worked in different parts of the world, New York is one place where this term cultural MacGyverism happens in one place, which is you could have people from so many different cultures, but if you can actually mix and match them, you end up with something completely different. There is no one way of doing things in New York, right? There's so many places that you work. We've always been doing this way or that way, and you know, it's not always easy to break through those processes. New York, because you have people from so many different places, so many different backgrounds, cultures, etc. If you let them thrive, they literally come back with different ways. Like, you know, there are times when I'll think of there's a business problem we need to solve, but if I put an Aussie on it versus a British person on it, they would come back with solving in different ways, all the way from creative to production, right? In some markets, you have to find them. In New York, you can actually have them mixing around. The main thing is making sure they don't get lost in the New York way of working. And to me, the New York way of working is always just changing it up so you can get out of whatever problem you're in.
So I'm from the Midwest, and I've been in New York for almost 10 years. So I think I can proudly say I'm a New Yorker now, and can have a point of view on New York creativity. One of the intentions that we set, and I personally set coming into, well-established, Mad Men era agency that's well known, born in New York, is this idea that there's a scale to New York that I think gives us an unfair advantage. And we like to think of, sitting in the center of the universe and being a flagship and the fastest of the fleet. And what does that mean in terms of innovation and being first and that competitiveness, that hustle and intensity that Emily kind of talked about. But I think as I open up the aperture and really think about some of the best creativity that's happening around the world, it's happening outside of New York, if I'm honest. And it really changed the body language for leadership to recognize that, we tend to have this sense of ego and Western dominance that, we set culture and then the rest of the world follows that. And it's really not the case. And so I think, of course, I didn't trust my instincts. So I asked Chat GPT these questions because I'm really fucking tired tonight. And I've had such a day. And according to Chat GPT, the aspects of New York creativity has long been recognized as a global hub for innovation and creativity across art, fashion, media, technology, finance, and more. Some of the key aspects of New York creativity include cultural diversity, arts and entertainment, fashion, design, media, technology, street art and public expression, innovation and entrepreneurship. There's a culinary scene that's diverse and dynamic, and performing arts, which is unlike anything else that attracts those who contribute to the city's vibrant cultural scene. So I do think that there's a specialness of New York, and we're proud, to lean into that intensity. But I think we need to also recognize the level of inclusivity that we need and that diversity that comes from other cultures and outside of the city.
Yeah, I love that. It's something, Harsh, you sort of mentioned in your answer the constant change. Like there's an element to New York itself and New York creativity that's constantly changing. And in some ways, it feels weird to talk about the pandemic now that we're 4 years out of it. But I do feel like as an industry, we sort of went into hibernation, right? We went into our bunkers and we've come out and we're still, I think, working out what work looks like, what hybrid structures look like. I'm curious if there's anything new that you feel emerging, like what is the new hallmark of creativity as we sort of enter this new era? Anything that has changed in recent months or years that you've noticed?
I mean, I think just to address, the pandemic was the equalizer for all of us, right? There was a point where you switched on anything, you literally saw the same ad with a different logo. Like our inspiration was all the same, a blank wall, right? And I think coming out of it, some people adapted to what the post-COVID era, if you will, is. If you look at QR code became the most important thing of our lives, which we ignored completely, right? But how you use that, has changed, right? Before COVID, we never thought there could be a QR code just floating around on a screen, and that's fine to be an ad. That is still an idea, right? So I think people have been more embracing, and then some. I think in some places you feel people are still a bit like headless chickens because you're still catching up. Because what post-COVID did was it fast tracked so many buzzwords into our life that by the time you learn this, the next thing is out. And I think the race is now keeping up with all those things because by the time you figured it out, we've already moved on to the next thing. I think the speed of innovation has just gone to a whole other speed. Now, whether those innovations last for short or long, it doesn't matter. If we as idea people cannot respond when it's all happening, it's too late. Like there's no more, well, we'll take it live in 2 years. That technology is probably gone.
I think you mentioned the great equalizer, and I think in terms of dynamics of working, I mean, I recall not that long ago, right? When you're in the office every day and there's the dynamics of where the desks are and where the people are. And sometimes there were still offices. So there were people kind of put away, right? And you really had a sense of like, well, I can't go disturb that person and that person's over there. So I think it was an equalizer for the people too, not obviously just technology, but the ability for, I mean, I'm looking at a couple of, people on my team over there and, they're both young creatives. I'm not looking at you. And, but, and I think that the ability, for them, and I hope that they feel this way, to be able to communicate with me, it feels just like, like I'm kind of as equal to them as maybe a peer of theirs. Titles, forget those. And I think that that's really been a wonderful thing. And the other part of it, I think, is client relationships. Um, Obviously you would just have a conference call on the table, like where it's just that weird phone thing that looked like it could launch spaceships, and you'd be like this after, and you wouldn't be looking at them. And occasionally you'd go to their office, but sometimes they're away and you don't see them because you have to get on a flight, right? That's really been, I think, incredible, because I think that it's also helped flatten the client, the dynamic that we have with them, and really create much closer relationships, which I think fosters better creativity and better partnership between them.
I love that. I often credit the first kind of 6 months, kind of just being successful of keeping in touch, to Slack, because it was completely the great equalizer. And if someone needed to talk to someone, they were right there. You didn't know you didn't need their phone number. You didn't need to know where they sat. You didn't need to run the gauntlet of their assistant. But as you're both talking, I think there's one of the biggest benefits of that great equalizer is intentionality. So, I personally love QR codes. So I'm very excited about the use of them, and my team laughs at me all the time, but I think they're great. I've loved them for a long time. But we're just there are all these things that we can do now. So, and there always have been, but the intentionality of putting just that QR code, the intentionality of using a mode of communication, of building a culture. There has to be a reason for everything. We've all seen all the memes. We've all laughed at the memes. Oh, we've got free pizza. Come back into the office. We came back. We were very intentional about for example, building culture and having people come back into the office over 2.5 years ago, 3 days a week. And it was because we believed in creativity and being together and what that fostered. But people weren't going to come back unless you gave them a reason. So I think everything just has to have more of a reason, whether it's your brand building, your spot, your culture building efforts. So, and I love that, because we should, just because you can doesn't mean you should. So have a real reason for doing everything.
I think, just to contradict, while a lot of good things happen, I think mentorship went for a toss.
Oh, I thought you were going to fight me about QR code.
No. QR code. I was actually going to scan the WPP logo and saw if something came on, No, I think mentorship went for a complete toss, because
Totally.
all you're seeing is what happens in those 30 minutes or the 60-minute meeting, and then you're moving on to the next meeting, and no one's right. And I mean, I learned everything from seeing how different ECDs and CCOs worked and how different CEOs worked. And I was like, I never want to be that person. I want to be that. And I learned many things from there. I don't know if that kind of hustle, there is hustle in, new people coming in, but where are they learning it from, or to then go break those rules? Because and I think that's where the miss comes in for me, is when in the hybrid model, it is a little bit connected but disconnected. And I think it's a little bit now falling on people desperately trying to grab their mentors, going, I need you to show me stuff, or I'm not listening to you. 30 minutes are over. I'm hanging up.
Too, just as you're talking too, it's like we have to work a little harder at everything we do. But then also there's no corner office on Zoom. So it is this equalizer that requires more work, right? Oh, hello. So one thing I wanted to, so I asked them all a question last week, And I said, what trend are you most interested in right now? And someone, it might have been Laura, someone said, I feel like I should say AI. And I felt like that so encapsulated the ambivalence. I think we as an industry, so many of us are feeling is like, is it good? Is it bad? So I would love to get beyond what we all feel we should think and say about AI. And I'm curious to know, like, rubber meets the road. How are you using it? How are you thinking about it? How is it actually changing the way you work and the way you produce creative?
I really hope Laura asked ChatGPT.
I know.
You did.
I'm so glad you asked. AI is impacting creativity in several ways. So it says, number one, AI is a creative tool. Creative data analysis for creativity. It can analyze vast amounts of data and identify trends, patterns, insights, and a data-driven approach can inform creative decisions that helps creators understand audience preferences and tailor their work accordingly. It's also generative in terms of art and music and personalized content creation, automated content production, enhancing collaboration, and also ethical considerations. It's important to note that while AI can enhance creativity, the human element remains critical. AI is a tool that can aid and augment human creativity, but only humans can provide a unique perspective, emotion, intuition brought by human creators and continue to be irreplaceable.
I mean, that's what I was going to say.
Thank you for indulging.
Oh my God.
Look, I'm really glad that AI admitted that humans are necessary because I should feel seen. I feel seen.
I think that was the paid version.
Yeah.
The free version said you need to pay for me. So
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, when we were generally just riffing on, like, yes, of course, like it's pervasive. Everybody's experimenting. We're using it, trying to find unfair advantages. I think what's interesting is how few examples there are of AI-driven work in the world that we're holding up. And here we are in a award show as judges and thinking about what we want to hold up. And there are these like deep ethical concerns and risk adverse and, you know, it's nascent and everyone's trying to get an advantage, but, you know, it's experimental. And so a lot of it is happening on the inside. And I think that's what's really interesting. You know, we talked about efficiencies and concepting and how do you get to quick ideas and doing things differently and getting an advantage. But it was less about look at what we made with AI. I mean, there are some of those, right? But they're the few and far between right now. And I think that's really an interesting opportunity and tension. You think about where we are with it.
I think some of that. So what's interesting, my mom would be so proud on me saying this today, is law. I come from a family of lawyers, and I feel like the thing that's blocking us from using AI a lot, especially in the US, is the lawyers. I don't think the law has been able to keep up fast enough to where technology is going. And I think some of the use of AI is happening really well in different markets where you can turn a blind eye to a few legal cases. Or there is just no law, so you're using it, right? Specifically around AI. And that's how a lot of the internal use cases are starting to happen on efficiency. But if you look at your social feed, on the other hand, where creators are just creating stuff, the expectation of using AI is so high. But then when you actually try to legally use it, it's like, no, it's only for internal use, right? And I think that's where the difference comes in of, yes, we always have the epicenter as New York, but are we the epicenter when it comes to the use of AI? Or there are other reasons. And to me, that's where like talking to lawyers about this is like, okay, what are you actually blocking versus what's going to get me into trouble or what's going to get me into serious trouble? And let's evaluate and take the risk,
Well, when I knew Rob Riley was going to be here, I knew I better talk about AI.
He's hiding.
I mean, it would be amazing if I would love to see, obviously, some more creative examples that come out into the world, like the Serena Williams, piece that Nike did, where she played against her younger self. I mean, that was awesome. I think that what do I see the most in terms of what is it done for the creative business and our day to day? It truly really comes into the presentation and the sell of ideas to clients, because I think that has really tremendously saved time in terms of when you're putting your work and your ideas together, because you want the client to be able to understand what you're thinking of and they can see it. Because obviously so many clients are literal, they have a hard time imagining. That's really been tremendous, I think, for AI. So like, yes, I think we all want to get to ideas where obviously, customer experience or business or whatever that can incorporate it. But I truly do see on a daily basis what it has done for creative selling, which is half the battle.
Agree. And then just to add to that, using it to aggregate data and pull things up just so you have more inputs, whether it's into the strategic brief, whether it's, getting to some additional pieces of research quicker. Those inputs are, it's transformational to be able to do something in the blink of an eye rather than have 5 junior strategists working on it for a couple of days, and who knows what they're going to pull out. We love you, strategists. But yeah, it's still, it's nascent. It's, we have lawyers, but if we can just we all live with them. If we can just use it to raise the bar on getting to inputs quicker, whether it's creative, because we're doing the same, then that helps a little bit. Because the most exciting thing is people using their brains to come up with new, exciting ideas. The more inputs you can put into that, wherever they come from, the more fun.
And I also just feel like some of the best expressions are invisible to us. It reminds me of like the early .com days and the beginnings of kind of CX and taking the friction out of the experience and these kinds of things. And when you look at the ability to personalize at scale and like, a lot of the things that we've been talking about for decades with our clients, so much of what is being put into the world and in these experiences that are enhanced and driven by AI is really invisible in its expression, but it's providing that much more relevance or that much more utility or that much less friction and those types of things. So I think those are the things that, we're going to start to see more of, where we're not, it reminds me of like the early days in IBM Watson, like put a Watson on it. And you're like, really, this could cure cancer. And you're like cheapening it to create a dress. Like, what is going on? This is like not a gimmick. And I kind of feel like AI is dangerous in that sense, where if you're being performative about it, just to be able to claim work that feels high tech versus what its intended impact is supposed to drive. That's where we're going to start to see the distinction. And hopefully we'll see less AI, but we'll feel more of the impact of that technology and experience.
I'm curious, just tacking on to that, do you think that we are anywhere close to a time where, say, as jury members, we're going to start seeing AI created or assisted work bubbling up in a more
like, who isn't using it for award entries? I'm just curious, like these things are.
Yeah.
They're going to find other work. It's going to be fine. Don't worry.
Just to that, sorry, the jury thing. Okay. So what makes a good jury is having a very diverse group from different cultures, right? AI isn't there at that point where it's not learning from a diverse POVs. And also, I think there is a little bit of, are we celebrating what's been winning consistently in the past to reach the result of what's going to win this year? Because that's what AI is learning from somewhere, while the human discussion and interactions evolves based on the debates we have in a jury room, right? So if you're going to have 2 ChatGPT versions debating with each other, but they're still pulling from the same source of information, at some point they're going to just agree.
And if we ever want to laugh again, then we better not leave it to that.
This is a good segue. So I'm really curious to know how you all are feeling. I'm curious to know about the mood of advertisers at this moment. And I always think about this as we're heading into Super Bowl ad season too. I think it's I feel like when I watch Super Bowl ads, I always get a feel for what the cultural mood is that year on the advertiser side, on the audience side. And so I'm just curious to know, what mood is marking the moment, and how do you think we're going to start seeing that expressed in creativity at some of these big moments this year, be it the Super Bowl, be it Cannes, be it the Gerety Awards?
Well, I mean, a little bit of less crying and more laughing. I think in the Super Bowl, I think it probably is what people would like to see in general. I just we're coming into an election year. There's a lot going on in the world, and there's going to be a lot of intensity happening. And there's a little bit of levity and a break from that I think that you want to see, and probably particularly, in terms of our state of mind coming up, I would probably say laughter would be nice. Yeah.
It feels as if brands have two different things. One, permission to dive more into humor and, maybe a little safe humor than previous years, but two, just be themselves. Maybe that's not the mood, but a lot of what we're seeing with our clients is they've gone back to fundamentals. Who are we as a brand? What do we have permission to do? And maybe it's all part of cancel culture and being, stepping too far outside of your bounds and what happens when you do, but really understanding who you are as a brand and being loud and proud about that, whatever that is. And, for some that's return to humor. For some, maybe it's more heartstrings, but just really, understanding who you are, which I love. I mean, we're all brand builders here. So.
About even meetings earlier today, we're talking about origin stories and having permission to go back to getting grounded in that kind of DNA so that there is that authenticity. But I hope it's about bringing the entertainment value back to advertising. Really, like, what are we doing? What was wrong with just being 5% whiter on your teeth and like having a laugh about it and that kind of thing. So, it's become very overpromising and very heavy, and everybody's with you and together. And, now it's, the world is intense. And I think that we're craving entertainment, and we're seeing in culture, the entertainers are taking over, right? It's like, wait, this is our business. And suddenly they're doing commerce, they're doing everything. And so I do hope that it is more about entertainment, whether that's laughter or not, it should be entertaining.
Arsh, any predictions from you about creative trends we'll see really landing with audiences this year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to see more brands creating an interdependency with culture versus just trying to spitball their purpose out, which to me, that interdependency really plays into you can save the world while you laugh, or you can save the world while you make a few people cry, right? But whatever your core business is, like, I think in the last few years, we've seen a lot of every brand wanted to hit purpose, but did it actually also lift their own business with it versus it was purpose on the side? And I'm hoping, and I think those two will be intertwined moving forward, versus this is where we sell our stuff and this is where we save the world. No, they can both work hand in hand. I think between all the AI convos, the sustainability convos, we have to raise the bottom line of our business convos, I think they all hopefully start becoming one versus the other. And I think just the way to do that, I think, is marketing is to stop working in silos, but more with their sales teams and their product teams, which is where I think as an industry, we'll have more power to push innovation, because we'll be the outsiders helping our brands and clients come up with new things outside of marketing as well.
For the creativity in the business and how they can come together. So I have one more question for each of you, and then I want to open it up to anybody who has questions. Feel free. I think we have time for a couple at the end. So I'm sure, like anybody on social media saw at the turn of a new year, a lot of people's ins and out lists. And I'm curious to know one item from each of you, one in and one out. If you could usher anything in to the sphere of New York advertising, New York creativity, what would it be, and what would you like to open the door and let out?
So in is probably a little easier. I think this will be, I want this to be the year of proof. As an industry, we're a little beleaguered sometimes at our worst. And whether it's AI, whether it's data, we have the ability to prove at every single step of the marketing process more than ever before that, we're making better choices, help our clients make better choices. So really doubling down, proving out the ROI of what we do, because, this is this room full of really smart people. This is an industry full of really smart people. Personally, I'm too deep into it to look at another career. So I really want this to work. I believe in agencies. I just think at our best, we do incredible work to move the needle on our clients' business. So let's make it the year of proof. Out, I would like the TikTok-driven 10-year-old face cream trend just to disappear from the world. And there's a serious point to that, because I don't know who's doing Drunk Elephant social media. They're doing an excellent job. But my 10-year-old recently told me that if I tried really hard and used a lot more retinol, I could look a little younger. So I would really let that trend just to go.
Out.
Yep. True. Eve C. Mark, thank you very much.
All right, in and out. I think looking back at 2023 and things that happened in advertising or marketing in that world, and what I would like to not see happen again, I think out would be fear. And the reason why I'm going to say that is specifically when you look at what happened with Bud Light and Dylan Mulvaney, and when you look at Target in terms of Pride Month, they had a line of clothes and items from Chess and Ash, which is a queer-owned company, kind of art collective, and they pulled those things from the shelf because they could not stand up to the the commentary and what was coming from the world. And we all know what Bud Light did. They reversed and then everybody hated them. And I think so what I'd like to see coming into 2024 would be backbone, where say it, do it, mean it. Yeah. And I think part of that maybe is I would like to see in 2024 a return to courage, because I think a lot of brands right now are in a place of fear, are in a place of, oh, we can't, no, but wait, we can't do that because that might happen. And well, maybe that wouldn't happen if you would just stand your ground and you would stand up to it and you would, keep moving forward, and you wouldn't, kind of backstep and then pull, so that's what I would like to see, backbone and courage.
I think for me, the out is buzzword bingo. I think we played that last year. Everything was a buzzword. Every sentence was a buzzword. Can we just get back to real ideas and let the buzzword bingo enable it? But that's not like creativity, right? There is creativity, but it's not ideas, right? So how do we as an industry stop playing this buzzword bingo and entertain, right? And the in is, it's actually similar to kind of your out, which is confidence. Have confidence and speed in which we move. Like we often talk about move at the speed of culture, but then someone needs 20 days to think about it, right? So how do we enable speed even more? Would be my thing. Yeah. So yeah, fast and no buzzword bingo.
As an AI language model, I don't have personal opinions. But I can suggest general ideas that people might consider ushering in and out in New York creativity in 2024. In collaborative and inclusive spaces. I actually agree with this. Fostering environments that encourage collabs and inclusivity could lead to diverse and innovative ideas in the creative scene. So more collaboration, inclusivity. Out, creative stagnation. Moving away from repetitive or stagnant trends and embracing new and experimental forms of creativity could bring a breath of fresh air to the artistic landscape.
That's what bingo.
Basically, fucking nothing. Do everything the same, according to AI.
Sorry, you brought a fifth panelist today.
My partner.
All of
I
them.
told you. AI. We have a relationship.
All right.